your military experience is just as valuable as a civilian industry-based job or position. I think a lot of the time there's just a lack of understanding of what your time in the military provides you, both in technical skills and also leadership skills.
Hello, I'm your host, Sam East, and welcome to Diverse, a SWE podcast. Today, I'm joined by Helen Mills and Lisa Malmanger, co-leads of the SWE Military and Veterans Affinity Group. We're diving into the topic of community, specifically how to build community for military and veteran personnel in engineering, as well as their dependents and advocates. Helen and Lisa, this is such an important conversation. I'm just really looking forward to hearing your stories and your advice. Welcome to Diverse.
Thank you so much for having us. We are super excited to talk to you today and the other community members.
Yeah, we can't wait to dive in and tell you a little bit more about us and the awesome affinity group that we run.
Amazing. Well, if you've listened to the podcast before, you know we always like to start off with a little origin story. So we'll start with Helen, introduce yourselves, share a bit about your STEM background, and specifically what your connection is to the military.
So I am a proud daughter of a Navy veteran. Go Navy, beat Army. And I am very proud to serve this community that has done so much to serve us. And ultimately, I know and have seen firsthand how the community can be underserved. And so I look to just be an advocate and a support voice for that group. I am a mechanical engineer by education. I got my undergrad at Cal State Northridge and my master's in mechanical engineering at UCLA. And I currently work in the aerospace industry, as well as working with military and veteran organizations in our community.
Amazing. Look at that layered background that you have there. And Lisa, what about you? Tell us about your STEM background and your specific connections to the military.
Sure. I am an Army veteran. So go Army, beat Navy. My father was Navy, but so I did about 10 years in the Army and then I got out on medical. I worked in personnel during my Army time, supporting all the field units. And then after the military, that's when I got my degree in software engineering, which finally led me to the career I'm at now, which is a senior solution architect. And I also serve internally at my work as the operations lead for our internal military community. Outside of that, I also volunteer as a board member with Merivis. They're a nonprofit that supports military members in obtaining a career in tech. I also volunteer with Hire Our Heroes to help with transitioning military and also career guidance. And then as part of SWE, alongside with Helen, we co-lead the Military and Veterans Affinity Group. And just side note, I live in Texas. I have 3 dogs and I have a college-age daughter majoring in game design and development. I tried to get her into engineering, but she really wanted game development. So,
well, I'm sure there's some transferable skills there that you've probably inspired her with. You know, Helen, you had mentioned there that this is an underserved community that really inspired your involvement with it. What's one thing that you both wish more people understood about military connected engineers?
So I would say that I think the main thing that I wish people understood is that your military experience is just as valuable as a civilian industry-based job or position. I think a lot of the time there's just a lack of understanding of what your time in the military provides you, both in technical skills and also leadership skills. And people have a hard time translating that to what that looks like in more of a civilian position. And so I wish people took more time understanding how that is transferable and applicable to an everyday job. So that way they can also move up through leadership positions and promote and move up in companies and move around companies as easily as maybe someone who has a traditional experience or background.
Lisa, what about you? Is there something that is perhaps misunderstood about military connected engineers?
that is a great question. Helen touched on it some, and I just want to elaborate on some of that. One thing that I wish more people understood about military connected engineers, and when I say military connected engineers, I'm also including military spouses, because they also bring a
Mm,
huge skill set to the table
mm,
when looking for civilian positions. I want people to know that our experiences extend beyond our day-to-day roles on what we do in the military or as a military spouse. Some of us have worked in highly stressful environments where failure isn't an option for us. Others are relying on us to do our jobs and do it, above and beyond because everybody's relying on us to make sure nobody gets injured. So it teaches us how to think critically and adapt quickly. Change is something that we are all accustomed to in the military, spouses too, because we have to be ready to go if the spouse says, okay, I got to deploy in so many days. So that means organization, figuring out, okay, what do we do with kids? Do I need to move? There's all kinds of things going on. And then when we transition, we're facing like invisible challenges that other people don't see, navigating, adapting our skills, constantly having to prove why we belong in this new space. So changing from the military structure to civilian, it's not small because we may not speak in the same technical language at first. Because if you talk to anybody with the military, they use a lot of acronyms. But one thing we do bring to the table is discipline, resilience, and a mindset that makes us very effective teammates and leaders. And I do want to give a shout out to the military community that your experience does matter. You belong in those spaces in engineering. Don't let that imposter syndrome tell you otherwise, because it's told me that plenty of times. It still does to this
Mm.
day.
Do you find that's interesting? We've brought up imposter syndrome a few times through the episodes here on Diverse. Do you find that imposter syndrome is the hardest part? You mentioned so many amazing things there, the adaptability, the transferable skills, and so forth. Do you find the imposter syndrome to be the biggest challenge to overcome?
Yes,
Mm,
because what you do in the military is most likely very different than what you're going to do in the civilian world.
mm,
And the military in general, it's a whole different culture. And when you're in that culture for 10, 20, 30 years, to come out of that lifestyle and try to completely shift your mindset and how you speak, how you act, it's a lot. And then you come out and you're like, what the heck did I do?
hmm. What helped ease that transition?
Community and networking, finding other people that have went through it,
Hmm.
finding a mentor, finding somebody I could talk to and be like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm. And that's a hard thing for some people to admit, right? We all kind of do this sometimes where we want to know, we want to act like we have all the answers, but sometimes, especially in these transition phases, that's not always the case, right?
Right.
That's a perfect segue into our next question about community. We talk about community a lot on the podcast, but today we're focusing specifically on military veterans and their families. Why is having that supportive community so important to this population in particular? Helen, we'll start with you.
I think most importantly, and maybe most obvious sometimes, or maybe not, is, for those that are active duty or veterans, making sure that we focus in on and prioritize the mental health of that community
Mm,
is so important just because of the statistics of them coming out of the military, transitioning into a civilian workplace, or sustaining a lifestyle after the military. And so I think that is probably in the forefront of my mind is just making sure that there's a community to surround yourself in those
mhm,
spaces. And then I think, especially for any of the level of the dependents, I have seen firsthand that for a lot of spouses, for example, as Lisa touched on, you do have to make sacrifices, you do have to make changes. And so sometimes it can feel like perhaps your career has been put on the back burner, or you're not able to prioritize your desires for your personal development or growth. And so if you at least have other people around you that can help develop those skills and prioritize that for yourself, and also continue to encourage you and provide resources for that, I think it creates a better space for that part of the community to be able to say, okay, I don't have to feel like I can't have a job, I can't have a career, or I'm the only one that's going through this and having to deal with this because they're in such a unique spot as well. It takes away the feeling of being alone.
mm,
And the feeling of being stuck or that you don't really have options, which can mean a lot for someone's, personal happiness, but also just, desire for what they want from their life.
mhm. It sounds like it really takes a village.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whether it's your family and your career or, the little things in life, you definitely need those people around you.
Hmm. Very well said. Lisa, what about you? You touched on it a little bit. Why is having a supportive community so important to this population?
So, like I said earlier, for veterans and military families, community isn't just important, it's everything to us.
Mm-hmm.
We may have to move regularly, get deployed for months at a time, sometimes years, depending on what your role is. And when you leave the military completely, you're not just stepping into a new career, you're leaving behind a way of life, a sense of purpose that shaped who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that can really make somebody feel really lonely. Like when I got out, I felt like I had to start over from scratch. I could tell people what I did in the military, but they didn't understand what I was saying at
Mm-hmm.
all.
It's like you're
So,
speaking a different language almost.
right. And to me, I thought, to me, it was important what I was doing, but not being part of the military, they didn't understand some of the stories that I would tell or situations that I was involved in. So
Mm.
having that supportive community is more than just networking. It gives us hope and direction and the courage to keep moving forward. It's like a bridge between me in uniform and then
Mm.
who I'm becoming next. I don't know if
Mm.
that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. Lisa, do you have examples? Can you share a time when you personally needed that community in your own lives and then the impact that had on you?
Oh, yeah, I can. Actually, I'm going to age myself right now. So I got out right after 9/11 for
Mm.
medical reasons. I tried to get them to not discharge me for medical, let me stay in and, help support what was going on. But at that point, they said, no, you're too far along in the process. So when
Mm.
I left, I was completely oblivious of what to do next. So I didn't know where to apply. I didn't know how to translate my skills. I didn't know what was next. And honestly, I felt totally lost. I didn't know how to network, how to find other people.
Hmm.
I was unemployed for almost 2 years trying to figure out where I fit in, whether I should stay where I was at, move somewhere else, move back home.
Hmm.
And the truth is, sometimes we don't, back then, I don't feel like we got the support needed to transition out. Or if we did, I was too young and naive and didn't take advantage of it. So I was trying to figure stuff out on my own. It was very overwhelming. So when I did find somebody that I was in the military with, she really helped me. And you're going to hear this multiple times in lots of career conversations. Networking is the best way to get your foot in the door somewhere. And that's what got my foot in the door initially. And then from there, it just took off because I started getting comfortable. I started remembering and learning the civilian lingo, how to talk, how to act versus the military side of me. And that made a big difference. And then that's when I realized that my skills did matter. My skills did translate to civilian. I
Mm.
just didn't know what they would translate to.
Mm.
So having that community, having a mentor, somebody that you can talk to is very important because
Mm.
there's a lot of military people out there that are lost when they get out
Hmm.
and they need that community.
It sounds like community helped you recalibrate.
Yes, I needed that.
I love that. And Helen, what about you? Is there a time that you recall where you really needed that community and they pulled through and made an impact for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, having not being a veteran myself, and that's looked a little bit different for me over the years. But, even just in the personal space, I ended up having an injury and required emergency surgery. And the people in my personal life and my work life all jumped in to help and take care of things. So that way, when I kind of came back to normal everyday life, I was able to just jump back in. And just seeing people show up when you don't ask is just so important. And I've seen that translate in other spaces, where, for example, kind of like touching on what Lisa did, seeing mentors and leadership step in to say, no, I see what you're going through and I see that they're not valuing maybe this specific skill set and let me figure out how to make that, how to make that something that makes you more attractive as an applicant. Let me try to help you review your resumes. Let me help you try to do those things. And so I've just seen community kind of be the people who help without asking, or they know the right thing to ask for. So that way
Mm.
it doesn't feel like you're being a burden on them, and just being able to see community show up in just the most unique ways in the like most special spaces.
Mm. I can imagine that people listening to this, who engineers specifically, who are connected to the military, are the wheels are turning in their head now of how they can find that sense of community in STEM. Lisa, what would you recommend? How do you start building that community?
I think Helen touched on it perfectly. Show up. Start by showing up, whether it's attending local meetups, virtual tech events, the SWE's Military and Veterans Affinity Group. More than welcome to come join us.
Love that.
Yeah, you don't have to have all the answers. Just being present starts the conversation.
Hmm.
And there's also, getting involved in professional organizations that support your experience. There are so many resources out there. It's just a matter of getting on the internet and doing some search. Same thing for military spouses and dependents. Blue Star Families is great. Hiring Our Heroes, military spouse programs. There's a lot of resources out there, but I know as an introvert myself, the networking side can be very difficult, but I find it much easier to network with people that are like-minded.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's more easier to talk to people.
And Helen, what about you? Some actionable ways that engineers who are connected to the military can find that sense of community in STEM.
I think first and foremost, I would say that when you're looking for work or you're looking for opportunities, prioritize companies that have engagement groups with their employees that focus on this community, not just aerospace companies. I know people that work in the commercial space that also focus on military and veteran hiring, but just trying to find companies that care about that element of your experience and your work history make a really big difference on how you engage with that community. The other thing that I would offer too is I know that Lisa and I differ, that I tend to be a little bit more extroverted and bold. And I know sometimes it can be hard for people to do things like this, but reach out to someone whose job looks interesting to you, or
Mm,
reach out to a role that looks like it's attractive for you, either because of the company or because of the type of work they do. This could be your boss's boss at work, or it could be someone on LinkedIn that you follow for a couple of years. Reach out to them. You can start with something as simple as, I'm starting out in my career and I would love if you could take 15 minutes to talk with me about some of the things I'm pursuing or some of the things I'm interested in. And if someone says no, that just means that they're not the right mentor or person that you should maybe be working with. Keep
mhm,
asking, because I know in my experience, I've reached out to that person where I thought never in a million years would they give me the time of day. And now they're my continuous mentor and friend. So
mhm,
if you can find those people that you can lean into, and that leadership, or the type of people that whose job that you want, or the type of experience they have that you want, that will help you to just kind of be able to step into that. And then you're walking into spaces where you're wanted, right? If a company has these engagement groups, if that person wants to talk to you, then you're being welcomed into that space as opposed to being, treated as other than.
mm. You never know until you ask, right?
I'm
Absolutely.
writing that down. I'm writing that down, Helen.
Don't decide that it's a no until someone tells you it is.
Mm. And even then, sometimes you might have to, circle back.
Exactly.
Do you think
Uh,
Michelle Obama would take my call?
you know, you
You never
might. You
know.
never know. She has a podcast now herself. You could say, look, I've been on podcasts. Come on now. I got the experience. Lisa and Helen, these have been such great insights. Before we let you go, though, you got to tell us about SWE's military and veterans affinity group and the support and the community that it offers. Helen, we'll start with you.
So, with our military and veterans affinity group, our biggest and top goal right now is just trying to build that community. I know we keep using that word, but there are all kinds of forums for us to connect and develop. And so, what we're looking to do is just bring people together and be able to share experiences, ask for help, whether it's, something in your workspace, on your resume, or just something you're dealing with at home. But we really just want to start with that smallest piece and then see where we can go from there. There are really great organizations and really great ways that we can serve our community. But to start off, we're just looking to make some connections across all the different industries and all across the world. We have members that are here in the United States. We have and some that are out in Korea. We have them in other countries, and we know it presents a unique challenge. Maybe it's hard to find a common time for us to get on a call, but we would love to just connect and provide resources to this specific community when it feels like they're not really sure where to turn to first or what to try first. And so, we just would love to build those connections and kind of go from there.
And Lisa, what about you? What can you tell us about SWE's Military and Veterans Affinity Group and the support that it offers to the community?
I think Helen summed it up pretty much. Yeah, the goal is to try to get more people aware of our affinity group and more people involved, because the more involvement we have, the more ideas we can have on what the community needs. Without them joining, we're not sure what everybody's looking for. So hopefully with this podcast and with our Spotlight Month, we can get some engagement and get some more people willing to volunteer and support the affinity group.
And so for any listeners who, are listening to this right now, they want to get involved, they're feeling inspired, whether they are, military connected or they just want to be allies. That's how inspired they are. What's the best step they can take?
Call into one of our Mayvag open houses. We have one once a month. It's just a Zoom call where you can join in and come talk, ask questions, engage. We were really excited by the open house engagement last year at the SWE conference, and we built some really unique connections with people both at the collegiate and the professional level. That was really special. So just come and talk with us or come reach out to us. If that time's not convenient too, just shoot us an email. Lisa and I both personally live in different time zones, so we make adjustments for that. But we would just love to start talking. And then I think from there, we can figure out where the best fit it is within our Mayvag community or volunteerism. But just come talk to us and come engage. And then I think we can help you from there.
I think that's important for a lot of people to hear. I can almost see you extending your hand out. Like it's not gate kept. This is an open, almost forum.
Absolutely. And like I said, I'm not personally someone who's ever served, nor have I been a dependent, but
Mm.
just looking around my workspaces, around my family, around my community, the biggest thing that people need is just to know, where do I start? Sometimes it can feel super daunting to be like, oh, I have to fill out a form or I have to, sign up and do something fancy. But, in this case, it's just come say hello and we'd love to talk.
Yeah. And if you don't want to do that, feel free to reach out to us, like Helen said, on email or on one of our social media channels on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. And we'd be more than happy to chat with you.
Helen and Lisa are reachable. That's what they're saying right now. They want to chat.
Yes.
We'd love to get to know you. Don't hesitate.
Yes. Talk to us.
Well, Helen and Lisa, thank you so much for sharing your insights today. A very important sector. And like we said off the top, in some ways underserved. So thank you for all that you do and for really extending your hands out and welcoming people in.
Thanks for having us. It was fun to talk about it, and we're excited for what this group holds.
Yes, thank you.
SWE offers over 20 affinity groups that bring together communities that share similar interests and backgrounds. Membership in any SWE affinity group is open to all SWE members who are interested in participating. You can visit affinitygroups.swe.org to get involved in the ones that interest you. I'm Sam East, and from all of us at SWE, thank you to Helen, thank you to Lisa, and thank you for listening.